Hello, everyone, and welcome to a Channel 781 candidate interview. I am here with City Council Ward 4 candidate John Tracy.
Good evening.
Thank you for being here. So you're a challenger candidate in
Mhm.
a city where incumbents tend to have a lot of loyalty, and you're a first-time candidate. Do you
Yep.
think you win?
Yeah, I think I can win. I don't think anyone signs up to do this if they don't think they can win. Candidly, I think I can win because I think there's an appetite for what I'm saying, which is primarily that we need to be more transparent. We got to bring people to the table. That's a message that's going to can resonate with anyone. Who's going to say no to the idea of participating when and how you want to? I don't think it's a controversial thing to say. I want to give people information.
So it sounds like transparency is one of your top issues. I'm going to ask you actually if you can give us your top three, just to make this easy for anyone who's just figuring out now who they're going to vote for. What are your top three priorities?
So if you see any of my materials, which I think I've touched every door in Ward 4 that has a registered voter in it, you will see the message of transparency, inclusion, and accountability. Inclusion and accountability kind of come as subcomponents to transparency. Planning, which we'll talk about in a second, and transit are probably my top three. Planning is a very large umbrella of a subject. So if you want to talk transit or housing or services or parks or public spaces or open spaces, all of those things kind of fall within planning. But to start at the top, transparency to me, I think a lot of decisions are getting made in and around the city with little to no public input. In my experience, we as a city have done kind of the bare minimum as required by open meeting laws, and that is insufficient. I know we check the box, but is that really how we want to govern ourselves? I just don't think it's there. We can't force people to participate, and not everything's going to ring everybody's bell. It's not going to resonate. That's okay, but people should be able to access the information they want when they want it on the subjects that they want to find it for. When decisions are made, I think having well-documented, easily available rationale for those decisions. And I just don't think we've made it as easy as possible for people to be civically engaged. From a planning perspective, if you've lived in Waltham for any period of time, master planning has been going on for years in various forms, and it never really seems to get done. I'm confident there are a lot of reasons for that, but I'm also confident if we kind of put our shoulder into it, we could get it done. And I think it's kind of time to put pen to paper and draw a map. Where is Waltham going over the next 5-10 years? How do we get there? A plan can serve as a standard, something that we can use to help guide the overall decision-making process for the city. It keeps things aligned and on point. It can also serve as something that city officials can be evaluated against. Where did we succeed? Where did we fail? It's impossible to know how good or bad someone is doing at their job if you have no idea what they're aiming at. Thirdly, transit. Obviously that overlaps considerably with planning, but I think we can do a lot more to make the city more accessible. We need the transit routes that do exist to be more consistent. But in Ward 4, I think we're all familiar with the 70 and the 70A. It can be there, it cannot be there. You could have 4 in a row, you could have none for an hour. Yeah, Waltham's not going to likely dictate terms to the MBTA. That would be great, but I don't think that's a likely outcome. But we can certainly work with them to try to figure out how we can make things more reliable. What is it about our infrastructure that we can improve to make that service more reliable? I don't think it really is sufficient to support methods of movement that aren't a car. There are sidewalks that end. There are sidewalks that are in states of disrepair. There are streets that don't have sidewalks. There are sidewalks that have a power pole in the middle of it. So if you're pushing a baby carriage, you can't get by and you have to go into the street to get around. There are dangerous intersections. Focusing on Ward 4 a little bit, Beaver and Warren comes to mind. That is a disaster. Warren in Maine, which kind of includes Gore and Barbara, if you're familiar with it. We put down some new lines and tried to make a turn-only lane, but it didn't really solve the issue. People don't understand how to use the lights because they're confusing unless you drive through there all the time. And we just need to solve those things. And similarly, the train crossing on Beaver, that has been a point of contention for a while. There's not really any safe way to walk across it. If you have a baby carriage, forget it. Cars are not paying attention. People are not paying attention. The train horns, which kept everyone awake for weeks on end, we solved that problem, and credit to the city council for getting that problem solved. But we created that problem. We never made that crossing up to state code. So we ended up having these train horns going because we didn't do what we were supposed to do on the front end. How do we look at that and make it something that people can walk across safely and comfortably because there's a gym over there. People want to go to the farm on Beaver Street. If people want to walk to things that are over in Waverly Oaks, you need a way to do that safely. And our infrastructure just doesn't support that. And I think we need to find ways to kind of do it better.
Just to follow up on transit, how do bikes fit into that? I know some people feel it's an issue people feel strongly about in many directions. So what are your thoughts on how bikes fit into safe transit?
I'm an avid cyclist. I participate in the Pan Mass Challenge every year. I ride my bike hundreds of miles a year. It's not something I use as a general mode of transit because my wife doesn't like to bike as much as I do. We need to find ways to slow the cars down, create space and awareness. I've ended up on the hood of a car on a couple of occasions. People just kind of aren't paying attention. They're on their phone, which is illegal, obviously. I ride with 2 lights on my bike on the back, and I'm always in bright yellow, and a flasher on my front end, and I've still ended up on the hood of a car. Dedicated bike lanes where they make sense. Maybe it's kind of hard to segment off space out of some of the streets that we're in. So where it's appropriate, that's something to consider. Certainly painted lines and reminders and things like that. We need to have that stuff there. Where we can make our infrastructure support bikes better, I think it'd be great. I think the blue bikes would be great if we can make that a tangible thing. Is the more you normalize bicycles being around and teach people how to safely ride around cars and safely drive around bikes, there's a lot of potential there. I always kind of default to, I don't want to antagonize anybody in a car. So I try to ride safely. And I think, I know I've seen a lot of cyclists that don't adhere to the basics of traffic laws. And I don't have a ton of sympathy for people like, oh, I got buzzed by a car. You ran a red light. Of course you got buzzed by a car. You weren't thinking. You have to ride smart and safe. Our infrastructure can support that. You'll also encourage bicycles to utilize those paths and those roadways rather than everywhere. Not that they can't be everywhere, because they can. The more you normalize at certain places, you know what to expect, and it makes it a net positive and a good experience. You can kind of take more bikes off of Route 20, more bikes off of 117. When I ride, I go out Route 20 and I hit 117 and I just go west because I don't want to deal with it. But there are ways to do that on certain streets that makes it safer and easier than others. And I think we just need to find plans that make it safe and accessible, but also responsible, and recognizing the fact that cars aren't going anywhere. We're not going to displace them. And we need to be thoughtful and careful about that. And if we do it in a comprehensive fashion with infrastructure that supports it and makes it obvious and clear, and we enforce the basics of the rules for cyclists and for drivers, I think we can find a solution. Neither side is going to love everything, and that's okay. That's what compromise is about.
Just to follow up on transparency, that's an issue that's important to me too. And I saw that it was important to you on your website and your social media. One of the reasons I wanted to talk to you. So city council has a certain amount of control over its own rules for announcing meetings and things like that. And I think the city clerk's office has shown that they're able to do things however they're asked to do them. Mm-hmm. So just speaking specifically about the city council, what should the city council be doing to make itself more transparent?
A lot of things. One thing the election process has taught me, the campaign process has taught me, it's very easy to cross-post across platforms. And the city website is suboptimal, making sure we're pushing information, not just posting it in one place, but we're pushing it to places so people can be engaged where they are. You have to find people in the groups that they're in. And that means on the website, that means on putting it in Facebook, but also pushing it to Facebook, Waltham residents, Waltham, whatever. Pick places in Facebook to push the information to. Put it into Nextdoor because there are people on Nextdoor that aren't on Facebook. Put it into Reddit. It doesn't necessarily need to be a repository of everything. We can keep things, the records of stuff, keep it on the same website. That's fine. If it's searchable, that's okay. But pushing information, pushing announcements out beyond where we're required to, I think is imperative. We can also make virtual attendance a little bit easier. Right now, you can watch on WCAC. You can go to City Hall. That's great. It could be better, but it's pretty good. Virtual meetings, I think, are something that come with their own set of challenges, but challenges are there to be solved, not to be reasons to not do something. Not everyone can get there easily. Or, as we've talked about, transit's not necessarily great, or people can't get childcare, or people can't get whatever reason that they can't go be in City Hall. We need to give them ways to be active participants from a virtual capacity. And I don't think that should be too heavy a lift to solve if we want to. And I know there are rules and there are rationales for things, but we make our rules. Like, unless it's a state mandate or a federal mandate, it's governed by us. So let's change it. And let's just make it something that people can get to. There's no reason to keep it the way that it is. Just because it is that way means someone made it that way, and we can make it a way that will support everyone in 2023 and 2024 and beyond.
So I got the ideas out up front, and we haven't got into your background at all yet. Can you tell us more about your involvement in the Waltham community so far and what you're most proud of?
So I came to Waltham about 25 years ago. I'm originally from upstate New York. I grew up in a very small farming community. I'm the son of two teachers. One of my sisters is a teacher. I come from a family of educators. My wife comes from a family of educators. So we've kind of made Waltham our home since coming here. So I came here for my education, and then I kind of put down roots. And I say roots because since getting here, I've tried to serve wherever I can. And most recently, I've been serving as on the board of directors for Waltham Fields Community Farm, which I think everyone is familiar with. Farm Day was recently and come out next year. Just a little pitch, a great place. I'm also a Waltham Lion. I've been a volunteer with Healthy Waltham, as well as the Boys and Girls Club. You know, we touched on it briefly, but I do on a slightly less local level. I'm a rider for and fundraiser for the Pan Mass Challenge. I reference that mostly because I'm confident. I know some of my neighbors have been affected by the work done by Dana-Farber Cancer Institute. That's where all the money for the PMC goes. So we love that. And also in that quasi-local, my wife and I, we were puppy raisers for Leader Dogs for the Blind. That was an organization stood up by Lions International. We have a neighbor who's raised 10 guide dogs, maybe 11. And our puppy, who we anticipated having for a year and to train and then give back so she could become a service animal, she ended up career changed, and we were able to keep her. So now she's a registered therapy dog, and she does engagements kind of in and around the city. She's at Bentley pretty regularly. She works at a memory care unit, visiting folks and things like that. So a couple different things, very much focused on just kind of giving back where and when we can. You said pride. And it's a word I really don't like. It feels like it has, and this will sound a little bit cliche, but it feels like it has a little more ego to it. I have been very blessed through my life. My family's been very blessed through our lives. We've had some challenges, and people were very generous and supportive when we needed it. And so it's always been instilled in me to give back where we can. So it's kind of I do the thing because it's the good thing. We feed hundreds and thousands of people through the farm over the years. We educate people. We help people get food. We help kids have a place to go after school. Like, that's just what we should do. If I'm going to assign pride to anything, it's a little bit weird, but I think it's this. Running for the city council, it's very important to me to be willing to do the work you would call someone else to do. I think it's really easy. And I say this as a person who's talked to lots of people and they've done this to me, but I think it's very easy to just say, well, what we should do is this, and just kind of point and give some dismissive, overly simplistic answer and solution to something that's very complex. And that's simple. It's hard to knock on doors and ask somebody to believe in you, to support you, your ideas, to have uncomfortable conversations and discuss points of view and find common ground, or at least discuss things where you're not going to find common ground and say, okay, I understand your point of view. You understand my point of view. We've had a civil discussion and we can try to find some way to make progress on these things. So yeah, I think it's this. I think it's running for office. I never thought I would do it. I never wanted to do it, but putting the effort, the energy into the conversations and trying to push these things ahead, I think that's kind of where I hang my hat right now.
Well, thank you for running. I agree. It's not an easy job, and people shouldn't try to do it unless they have a service outlook like you do. If they think it's going to be fun, that's not going to turn out to be a good reason.
No.
So thank you. I have to ask about the farm, because this is something we were really interested in on our show. And you mentioned you're on the board. Is that correct?
I'm on the board, yes.
Waltham Fields Community Farm. So most of our viewers know, but for those who don't know, that's the nonprofit that operates the farm at the Warren Field Station, which used to be the UMass Field Station. And the city now owns that land. In order for the farm to stay there, it needed a lease. And there was some controversy around that process in the city council, even though pretty much everybody said they were pro-farm. And it turned into the kind of thing where people had to go into meetings to support the farm. Can you tell us what happened there from your point of view, and what did you learn from it that would influence how you would be on the council?
Yeah. So full disclosure, this is still an open item at the city. And as a board member, I have to be careful about what I do and do not talk about. as it relates to this because it is an open item. Obviously, I feel very strongly about the farm. I wouldn't have spent the last 6 years on the board. If I lose this election, I will continue on the board to continue advocating for everything that we do because it's an amazing place and an amazing mission, and the stuff that we do there is incredible. If I win this election, I will leave the board to remove that conflict. It's a complicated thing to do an RFP. We responded to the RFP. We won the RFP. The RFP was in some capacity translated into a lease that was provided to us. We have not signed that lease for a variety of reasons, which I can't dig too deep into, other than to say we want to sign a lease. We would like to sign a long-term lease. We would like to sign a lease that's longer than 5 years. I know there's a lot of controversy about that, but I think we'd like to sign a document that has appropriate protections in place for us to continue to exist as a nonprofit, to operate as a department that's going to give back to the community, and focus on our mission of feeding people, connecting them to their food, educating them about the land, and being stewards of that specific parcel. I mean, it's incredible farmland, and we want to continue to do that. That said, I'm hopeful we'll find common ground that we can sign on. So it's something we will continue to talk about, continue to work with the city. As long as the city is willing to talk to us and work with us, we will engage, and I'm hopeful that we will get this signed, sealed, delivered in the very near future. If people want to learn more about it specifically, I would encourage them to sign up for our newsletters and things, because you'll have appropriately framed feedback. But we want to engage, we want to work with the city. I'm very thankful that they bought the land. Better them than UMass. I think we just need to work through a couple of things and get it done. If you want to learn more, you should reach out to the farm, get on the newsletters. Our annual meeting is this week, so there'll be more things coming out. Our annual appeal will be coming out. So lots of information is available. But please, if you can take any message away from this, it is that we are committed to being in Waltham. We're committed to being at that field. And we are going to work diligently to ensure that we are for as long as we possibly can be. We've been there for over 25 years. And we want to be there for another 25, 30, 50, as long as the city will have us.
I want to also follow up on what you said about looking for common ground. So my perspective, and I think my colleagues on 781 perspective on the city council the past 2 years, is it's pretty polarized. It seems like a lot of the decisions are really not being made in the meeting. Someone comes in with an agenda that everybody has agreed to follow, and some people go against it, and that's seen as messing up the process. How do you create a city council where the issues are being discussed and common ground can possibly be found? It's
the biggest issue that we have. It's complicated to solve. It starts with actual tangible conversation. What I mean by that is that everyone comes to meetings, comes to the issue loaded for bear, and it just escalates. No one is talking, everyone is yelling, nobody is listening, everyone's waiting for their turn to speak. It's not productive. And how do you solve that? I think you start by not coming in with a solution. You start by saying, hey, this is a thing that's happening. This is a situation. And let's start with, is it a problem? Do both sides agree that something is a problem or not? There are points of view on most every issue on both sides, or 3 sides, or 7 sides, that are valid. And I don't think we take the time to listen. I think we've gotten into tribes, and tribalism has taken hold. And so it just starts with, nope, this is it. This is how I feel. I'm not going to talk about it. And we need to come back from that and say, if we want to talk about transit, and we'll use that as an example, which I'm ill prepared to do, but let's try it. Let's talk about it and say, okay, hey, everyone, is transit an issue? And someone will say, no, I think it's great. Cars get from A to B very, very quickly, and we think it's terrific. Okay, if you're a driver, that's great. That's your experience. That's real. But maybe the turn lanes aren't great, or they're not signed well, or people are speeding a little too much, or it's too congested. So can we talk about that? And someone else might feel like it's a situation where it's like, no, the traffic is terrible. Transit is terrible because I don't own a car, and the 70 never comes through once, and then it's not here for another hour again because it's backed up across town because it can't get through because the traffic. Or I'm a pedestrian and I can't navigate my baby carriage around the telephone pole. All of those are valid, and you need to start with saying, okay, for those of you who thought this was all fine and great, do you hear these things and acknowledge these are problems? Yes or no? And if we acknowledge this, and if someone says, no, I don't think it's a problem, I don't think it's a problem for you to push your baby carriage into the street to get around this pole. Number one, let's shine a light on that and make sure that people are hearing that on the record from the city council in the comfort of their own home or on the readout or in the minutes or wherever else to say, Councilor so-and-so thinks this is okay. And if you agree with that, terrific. If you don't agree with that, you should reach out to them and express your discontent. And that's where that transparency comes into it. Because if you can get people to talk about it, express an actual point of view on an issue, and you expose that to people, then people who care about that issue will reach out to those councilors and say, hey, I disagree for these reasons. Explain to me why you don't think that's a problem. And if they don't like the answer, in 2 years, they will vote them out. And that's the only path forward is to make sure people know how people feel, know what their opinions are, know what their positions are on the record in meetings when we actually have discussion. So we're not going to come in with a solution. We're going to come in with a discussion and make sure people can see it. So it starts there with just taking the tenor down, putting it all into the bright sunshine of daylight and saying, this is real. This is how you feel. And letting citizens take an active role in the process and demand more from the city council. I know there's 70,000 people in Waltham, or 65, 68,000 people in Waltham. They're not all going to email everybody about everything. And there's 15 people in the city council. But if enough people participate, then these things will solve themselves.
Very optimistic and awesome. But what do you think are the barriers? What are the kinds of to your agenda in general, but particularly to kind of you have a different vision of how you'd like to see the council operate, it sounds like. What is preventing that from happening? What would you be dealing with if you win to prevent anything?
The biggest issue is the tone and tenor, as we just talked about. It's going to depend who's in which seats. There are more people running now than I can ever remember running for office. I don't think I've ever seen 12 people on the at-large ballot. There's a lot of contested ward races, which is terrific. I would like to see more. I mean, if I win, I hope in 2 years somebody challenges me because I want to keep doing this stuff. I want all 9 wards to be challenged. I think that's appropriate and important. But what you're going to walk into or what you'll experience is going to depend who's in the chairs and their willingness to engage or not. If people are willing to engage, great. We can have productive conversations. If they're not, then we need to make sure the broader population is aware of that stuff. So we go find people where they are. That's what I've been doing for the last several months, is going and finding people where they are and saying, this is what I think. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about these things. If you want to engage with me, here's how to do it. It's the exposing part and the transparency part. If we actually drive true transparency, and unless someone tells me I'm not allowed to do something, I'll do it myself. I will take the minutes. I will take the videos. I will take the roll call votes and push them. I will push them out there myself because it's not that hard. Is it going to be perfect? No. But if the city wants to drag its feet, all right, then I will just push it through myself. And if that causes problems, so be it. I'd like someone to articulate why they think it's wrong to do so. I think that'd be a hard position to defend. But we don't want you to see the minutes. We don't want you to see who voted for what. Who's going to die on that hill? I can't fathom any councilor saying, oh, it's really bad to tell anybody how we voted on this thing. I would be stunned by it. And I hope I won't be. If I am, so be it.
That's great. And I think you might be surprised. I think there will be some strong beliefs about what can be shared with the public that they believe are based on the law, but are based on an interpretation of the law that needs to be challenged. So you seem very sincere about this. I appreciate that. In order to get the kind of city council you're talking about, it has to be people who are willing to question the rules, or at least the current interpretation of the rules. So,
well, and if someone wants to say this is the rule, so you can't do this, okay, well, then we can shine a light on the rule and say, if you think this rule is silly, it is preventing me from doing XYZ, which I would like to talk about, but I can't because this rule exists. If you think that rule shouldn't exist or should be changed, let's shine a light on that and drive support to changing the rules. There's nothing wrong with that. That's why they're there. You just keep pushing at things and saying that you put in the legwork, and you make it your own and say, if this is important to you, do it. And the most important thing I could possibly do is go shine a light inside City Hall and say, this is what's happening. Participate where you want to. We'll talk about it. We're not going to agree on everything. That's okay. But you'll know where I stand and where everybody stands. And if you like it or don't like it, you'll at least know how we got here.
Thank you very much, John Tracy. I know that there have been a lot more opportunities for candidates to introduce themselves this year than in past years, which is great. But I know I appreciate your time, and I think our audience will as well. This is part of a series of candidate interviews. We hope to post maybe one or two more before the election on the 7th. So stay tuned, and thank you very much.
Great. Thank you very much.